everybody. Welcome. This is Dee Dee Russell with WeddingVenueOwners.com and the Wedding Venue Owners and Managers community on Facebook. Today, I have amazing guests from Ventura, and that is Lee and Kaylee, and they are going to tell us a little bit about what Ventura is, what Ventura does, who their clients are, how they can help our wedding venue owners and managers community, and our engaged couples as well. So Lee and Kaylee, will you introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. I'm Lee Midkiff and one of the co-founders of Ventura. And interestingly enough, as we'll probably get into on the backstory, I've had involvement both in corporate planning of events, venue ownership, have seen the daily grind that entails, and in part actually led to the founding of Ventura, with somewhat of a disconnect between what I felt should be processes for insurance and what really didn't exist in the marketplace. And I'll defer and let Kaylee introduce herself, but we actually met by handling insurance together for a venue that I'm involved with.
Yes, I'm Kaylee David. I am a co-founder of Ventura as well, and I have the insurance background. So as Lee has mentioned, we met through myself writing policies for his newly engaged brides and grooms for their upcoming events at his venue. And that is kind of what started and born Ventura.
Well, I love that. As you all know, I've been working with the wedding venue owners and in the wedding industry for about 20 years and wedding venue owners for about the last 8 to 10 years. I have toured about 800 wedding venues since I started doing this. I have seen everything under the sun, but I get to meet the venue owners and talk to them. And, you know, when you look in a venue owner's eyes and you see the passion they have for their wedding venue and how this is such a big dream for them to have a successful wedding venue, to enjoy what they're doing, to do something they love, which is, you know, providing the stage that weddings are played on. All of these things are so special and important. And like I said, when you look in their eyes and you meet them and you really get to know and love them, you understand how vital it is for them to have the resources to protect their investment and to protect their future. I mean, a lot of times you see young couples starting their family and starting their venue, and this is their livelihood. And a lot of times you see, you know, older couples, and this is their retirement. And sometimes you see collective groups that are investing together. I mean, it's a big investment and it can be very scary, but there's nothing more scary than finding out you are not protected at the wrong time. How does Ventura help wedding venue owners? And then we'll talk about wedding couples as well.
Sure, absolutely. I'll dive in here because I take the venue prong of it and give a little bit of backstory. We obviously, and I'll preface, every venue is different. State by state, there's nuances. So what may work for somebody in the state of California may not necessarily apply in, you know, Virginia or in Ohio. That there are some nuances, and obviously people have different types of venues and structures. So I think that's one of the most important things for anybody in your group to realize is that we'll cover a lot of information, but there are outliers and everybody's situation is different. And I think that's one of the positives with Ventura. You have a real team here. If you have questions about what type of coverage you have, those type of things, don't hesitate to reach out. In our particular situation, despite business owner policies and all the layers of various coverage that we have, we do mandate day of event liability coverage for our brides and grooms. Basically, it's an interlane. It's a level of coverage between our traditional insurance and ultimately what may go wrong on the day of the event. That process layered into our contract. Like many others, we have minimum requirements. You must have $2 million in aggregate coverage. And we have a number of different additional insureds on that. So from the property owner itself to a couple of the entities structured within that. And what we always found is that, let's just be completely blunt here, to a bride and groom, insurance is not sexy. Okay, they don't care at all about insurance. It is the last thing. They go in, they meet with the venue manager. They want to know about location placements, when they can bring stuff in, when they're required to get out. They want to know where they're going to have all their great pictures taken. They don't care about insurance. But it's buried within that contract. And for a venue owner like myself, it is, you know, it's an important element. We've worked too hard to get where we are in life to potentially have a guest do something dumb that could put that at risk. So needless to say, we, like a lot of other venues, require day of liability coverage. We have those elements layered into the contract. But what we always found was that when it came time to buy those policies, the bride and groom were lost. A lot of their local insurance brokers, they don't care about a day of policy. They want your auto, your homeowner's insurance, renters, whatever it may be. They would end up inevitably probably going to one of the other kind of online day of policy locations, and ultimately having to cross-reference all of that to their contract. Okay, let me see. I need this minimum requirements. I need to make sure that I convey to them that all these additional insureds. If they do buy it and buy it on time, that's a blessing a lot of the times for a lot of us, where we're not having to remind them. Then they have to actually get that COI, the certificate of insurance, to the venue. Ultimately, in my situation, we started directing people to Kaylee because she knew all of our requirements, so that they would place that phone call, they could get their policy. They knew that the policy would come from Kaylee to me, and it worked well. The reality is that's still kind of cumbersome. We deal with brides and grooms who like to do stuff online today. And how Ventura was really founded out of that concept on how can we actually take those concepts and put them into a single technology platform. So ultimately, what we do for venues, to get long-winded answer here, Dee Dee, I'm getting to your to the core of your question here. What do we actually do?
This is about insurance, and you take time to explain, because I can guarantee you our venue owners are listening. I mean, we have question after question in the pending posts, and I'll get to this later. I'm not really publishing those as much anymore out of a fear that people will get bad advice or that we'll create a resource for misinformation. So you take your time and tell us everything we need to know to make sure our venue owners are protected. That's what's important.
Absolutely. So ultimately, I'll go back to, it's not sexy. Brides and grooms don't care about it. It is the venue that is driving this day of coverage primarily. I'll put a big asterisk on that. You talk about, young couples. It is important, in my opinion, and this is really an outside view, that for the cost of a day of liability insurance policy, that a bride and groom or whatever family member is on that contract buy a policy. Too much can go wrong. If you get sued, defense coverage alone can be pretty significant. The last thing you want to do is kick off your nuptials with defending yourself in court because a guest did something inappropriate, a bad accident happened, one of those things that would be covered by liability insurance. That said, at the end of the day, the venues are driving this. So we built at Ventura a platform that allows that venue to actually create an account within our system. So if I'm XYZ venue, I can sign up. It's about a 2 to 5 minute process for the venue. They list out all of their information, including what are their minimum requirements, $2 million, $1 million, $500,000, whatever it may be for aggregate coverage. They can list out all of their additional insureds and any other requirements they have around the venue. At that point, when their clients come online to our site, they simply select XYZ venue. It pre-populates all of the requirements. They go through the ordering process. It takes about 2 minutes to order that liability policy. At that point, once it's paid, purchased, it's automatically delivered to the venue. It's dropped into their online account, so they have a copy of that forever. They can go in at any point if they need to find a old COI or looking for one that may be current, that's all logged within that account. So really, from the venue's perspective, it takes them. Kaylee can address this a little bit as well, but what we found consistently is she was having to get on the phone with people to explain what they needed. Basically, we've dummied it down for where the bride and groom simply select their venue. It automatically lists those requirements that are going to be in their contract, pre-populates all of that through the ordering process, and effectively they're done at that point. They don't have to worry about getting the copy of the COI to the venue. And in our situation, a lot of venue managers, look, they care about it, but they don't want to waste their time. I'm sure as anybody who watches this knows, those in the venue space, the one thing they are short of drastically is time. There is not enough time in the day. And the last thing that they want to do is chase a certificate of insurance, from a client to verify that or to make sure that it's correct. So there's a lot of efficiencies that come with that, with saving time up in front for the policyholder, ultimately their client, as well as, the savings that they have with just focusing on real things like, preparing for this Saturday's wedding. So a lot of efficiencies there. For the venue owners themselves as well, our carrier that we utilize is Markel, $15 billion insurance company out of Northern Virginia, that backs all of our policies. They're state filed policies, which I don't know whether we want to get into a lot of insurance nuances, but pricing is regulated, filed with the state. There's a little bit of protection that comes by having state filed policies. But the beauty of it is at the end of the day, and you'll see this in our marketing literature, we are venue first focused. We realize that it is the venues who are actually driving this, who, even though our customer service is solid for the bride and groom, those venues can reach out to us at any point with any questions. We've got a great team from a customer service perspective, and that's what they're getting as well, is actually we're all online, streamlined there, but right here, Kaylee, me, the rest of the team, you have real people. So long rambling answer to your question, but trying to streamline it and be a resource.
Listen, if you want to ramble, just wait until we do more of these videos and you get in one word and I do the whole rest of it. That's typically like I spend a lot of time editing these, and it's usually me editing myself out of not shutting up. So you're perfect. And this is the information that we need. Like I said, so many people are asking, and there's so many questions. There's so much confusion. There's questions like, if somebody sits in a chair, the rental company brought the chair, but the chair's at my venue, and then they sat and they broke the chair, and who's getting sued for that? I don't have to worry. I'm the venue owner. They'll just sue the couple. Well, the couple says sue the rental company. They have more money. You'll get more out of it. There's all these conversations that go around where people are wondering and confused. What if it's slippery and wet? What if it's rainy? What if pipes break? What if, with COVID, with all the, delays and things like that. So Kaylee, can you give us some of the top things that you see coming across your desk? Maybe some of the things where a venue owner was like, thank goodness, just thank goodness that I took that extra layer. I think one more thing is, a question comes up a lot. Well, I have homeowners insurance. I live on site, or I live on my property, and then the vendors have insurance. So why do I need the couples to have insurance? That doesn't make any sense. So can you help us understand some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first and foremost, protection is key. So whether that's the brides and grooms protecting themselves, the venues protecting themselves, etc. As Lee mentioned, it's so important for everyone to be protected. The rental companies, everybody involved should have protection, because you really don't always know at the end of the day who that claim could potentially fall on. And that's something that we see often is when a claim is submitted, a claim is really, they do their investigation before just paying out. So I think a lot of people just automatically assume, well, if I have a homeowner's policy, I would be covered. And that's not necessarily the case at all, especially in situations like this. Or maybe a venue owner thinks, well, I have a BOP, so I don't need to require insurance for my brides and grooms. The BOP will always cover it, BOP business owner package. But at the end of the day, that's also not always the case. And why put your liability on the line when you could be transferring the risk to someone else, especially as we've talked about venue owners. These venues are their pride and joy. So, and they absolutely should be. So why risk losing your business when you can essentially transfer risk to someone else? And I think that's the biggest thing. And with creating Ventura, what we have learned is the education tool. And what we want to do is educate more than anything, because there isn't enough education around this, unfortunately. One, probably because these policies are so inexpensive, people don't want to take the time to educate. But two, I think, unfortunately, liability insurance for events specifically and cancellation insurance have gotten a bad rap because carriers don't always pay out. And that's not the case. Again, Lee did mention we work with an admitted market. So there's non-admitted carriers and there's admitted carriers. And when I say we work with an admitted market, that's a huge deal. They're backed by the states, as Lee mentioned. Pricing is regulated. There are so many things that do go into that. And these policies are specifically designated for liability policies, where I think a lot of times too, these non-admitted markets have policies that are almost just a cumbersome policy that don't specifically cover specific things that could go wrong at something like a wedding or an event. And that's the same with a homeowner's policy. A homeowner's policy is to protect your home. It's not to protect you throwing a party for a bunch of friends at another venue. That's to protect your home. So more than anything, these policies are so important to transfer risk and to protect yourselves. I know the biggest one that we see, and unfortunately come across our desk, is always has to do with liquor. You just don't know where liquor is coming from. And we made a stance from the very beginning that we were going to include liquor liability on every policy that we sold, specifically because even if the bride and groom says there's no liquor showing up at the venue, who knows if your Uncle Joe is bringing his own liquor, or who knows if they were golfing the morning of elsewhere, not even at the venue, but the last place that they came was the venue and they did drive home drunk. So I would say number one thing that we see come across our desk does involve liquor, whether that's fights. They always boil down to involving liquor. And homeowners policies don't always cover liquor. So it's important that when venue owners are requiring this insurance, they are looking for these details that maybe they don't even know to look for, such as carrying host liquor liability, both the venue owner and the bride and groom on their policy. Like I said, claims is always a tough one because they really are, they dive into them deeply. And so it just really depends what that looks like once the adjuster gets in there. But it would be heartbreaking to not require a liability policy and it be something that could have fallen on that liability policy instead of falling on the venue's policy. So I think more than anything is just making sure that you're properly educated and asking for the things that will protect you as a venue owner.
I'm going to jump in here real quick because Dee Dee, I think you mentioned chairs, rental companies. I actually have witnessed firsthand an event where they decided to reuse the ceremony resin chairs instead of the traditional X-back chairs. Now, if you are familiar with the resin ceremony chairs, they are probably not the most sturdy to uphold at times for a long reception with a lot of alcohol involved, and they're not all that big and so forth. I've seen a few chairs collapse in that situation. In that certain circumstance, as you mentioned that, I was having this flashback, okay, nobody got hurt, but what if somebody had gotten hurt? Sure, that rental company has their coverage. Maybe that person was intoxicated. Maybe that chair was on wet ground at the time. At the end of the day, had something happened there, everybody probably, and there was a claim, a allegation that you owe me for whatever it may be. Odds are everybody's going to sue everybody. There's that old adage, you can sue a ham sandwich. I think it actually ties to indictments in New York way back in the day that some judge made the comment that any day, anybody can indict a ham sandwich. Well,
I agree with that because ham sandwiches are delicious, but they have carbs. So I agree that there should be some suing of that. So
the reality is, as Kaylee talks about, transfer risk where, if that happens, at least be protected, because odds are you may be thrown into the mix of, you're the turkey sandwich and the ham sandwich and everything else is over here. Transfer the risk by at least making sure that you're prong of that. At the end of the day, you may find that the rental company was responsible. Those chairs hadn't been maintained well. There was some underlying defect with that. But why worry about it, I guess? And for a fairly limited cost. So it is just ironic though, because and I'm not knocking anybody who uses resin ceremony chairs for some events, but I will say I've seen them heavily abused in a reception capacity before.
After a few drinks, I think everybody gets a little heavier. We're a little less dainty with the sitting. We're just throwing ourselves down caveman style in whatever chair we can get across
and they fold up on top of it. So I've seen some heavily abused chairs at times.
So you also have a wedding venue, and I really want to touch on that because I think this gives our venue owners, you know, a lot of comfort when we work with other venue owners. The thing that I say all the time is the best asset of any venue is the venue owner or management team. And nobody knows better how to run and manage their venue than another venue owner. Now, that doesn't mean we still don't need assistance and help and guidance, but to find a venue owner that is also involved in insurance is, I mean, just so wonderful. It really helps us have a better understanding of how to protect our venue, and to know that you, as a contact for Ventura, can really give us a little extra insight. So when a venue owner is considering Ventura, what are they considering Ventura for? Is it for themselves or is it for their clients? And how do they go about connecting with you and starting the process?
It is pretty much both. Those that are looking at it the correct way, obviously they're looking to cover their own risk. And you mentioned the venue management and ownership side. I think the best takeaway that I have for that from advice to start with is I've witnessed the dumb things, sorry to chalk it up that way, that happen at events. We all know that there's always that guy, and you see the risk just before your very eyes. And as Kaylee mentioned, a lot of times it is alcohol related, but so obviously with that, it is both sides. It is, you know, first and foremost, as a venue owner, you want to take care of your clients. That is, you know, mission and objective number one for everybody. That said, you know, your bread and butter, your livelihood, your assets you have invested in that are what you need to protect first and foremost. So there's a lot of benefit to the bride and groom with what the Ventura platform does. We haven't mentioned it, but we also offer cancellation insurance through that wizard process as well, where the venue may require liability coverage, but cancellation coverage as well. It's been something that's been frowned on historically. I think people say, oh, nothing bad's going to happen. I think we saw in 2020 and 2021. Now I'll asterisk, COVID-related cancellations have now been excluded at the state level for most people buying cancellation insurance today because it's a known issue. But I think it set home the fact that unexpecteds do happen. So that is something that we also offer of benefit to the bride and groom as well. And I think this may be totally anecdotal to myself. I have seen a lot of situations here over the summer. We know a big part of this country is facing staffing shortages. They obviously, I think cash flow was an issue for a lot of vendors over the last year or two. I've witnessed a couple things, including as recently as this last Friday with a no-show caterer. Was not one that we were familiar with, and was kind of an outlier situation for a rehearsal dinner. But cancellation coverage for really what's a pretty nominal amount protects against those things where all of a sudden you've paid somebody to show up and they don't, or you know, your wedding dress got lost in the mail. So there are those things that collectively benefit not only the venue from a risk perspective, having a team to support it, but then also the time on you know, saved for the venue and for the client themselves. Connecting with us, look, it's a pretty easy process on how to get started. You can go to ventura.co to the venue benefits section. That process will take you through about a 2 to 3 minute process to get set up as a venue. You're listed within our directory. You're immediately able to get it going. You can always call us directly as well. We also, even on our site, have you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, a little pop-up, instantly sends a text message, connects you via your cell phone directly to our customer service team. We have a lot of people using that. We get texts at all hours of the night. We know how that works now. So pretty easy process. You've got real people here, but we've got a lot of technology behind it as well, which is kind of the best of both breeds there.
Well, that certainly makes it easy, and our venue owners definitely appreciate easy because, as you mentioned before, and as you also know as a venue owner, time is super limited. And I did want to point out to venue owners out there that have a management team that you love and trust, and I'm all for that. It's amazing for you to be able to delegate some of that. But as a former catering and events director, I can't tell you how many times the policy was they needed our COI and we had it. But I would say half the time, management didn't get it from me. or follow through with it. So having that easy system where I submit my COI electronically and it goes directly to them. I mean, that is just that extra layer of you not worrying that your management team got so busy with rentals and client calls and venue tours and all the things they have to handle, or that you did. I mean, you know, everyone can be forgetful from time to time, but having that go right in and knowing where that is absolutely heavenly amazing. And I mean, the stress relief from that, knowing that you didn't have to chase it down, like you said, or ask for it, or that your team responsible for getting that forgot.
And I think one thing to go off of that, knowing that it's correct, because that's something that I have dealt with. So many brides and grooms will come to me and they'll say, I think I need this as the additional insured, or I think I need that coverage. They don't actually always know, though I'm sure it's in that contract they were handed. But knowing that you as the venue owner or your management team put it in our system one time, and unless mistakes do happen and it was done wrong on the first time it was put in, it should never be wrong when a COI is sent to you. So I think that's also huge, because then instead of having to go back, re-request, ask for an endorsement, change the names on or whatever it may be, we know as long as it was done right when it was set up, that it should be right every single time moving forward.
And I mean, we could talk for hours and hours. There's so many little caveats and things that happen, and then so many things that come up in the group. They just shared that video that's going viral with the sparklers on the stage hitting the pampas grass. Like, who puts pampas grass on the ceiling over the sparkler stage? And it just combusted quickly. Pampas grass is like a #1 most popular thing. To me, it's just kindling and fire starter. If I was on Naked and Afraid, I'd be looking for the pampas grass, because that stuff is just going to light up on its own. But anyway, it's everywhere. It's at every venue. Yes. And the thing that I think happens a lot is that our venue owners have protective language, and a lot of times they get pushback. Well, I know you said no sky lanterns, but can't I just, or you're not serious about that, or they have someone in their wedding party that brings the sparklers or whatever it is, and they start to use them as if, well, it wasn't the bride and groom, it wasn't the engaged couple, so, you know, no one will say anything, or no one's really going to go after Auntie because she brought it, you know. So there's just a lot of things that can come up over the course of planning. There's also 150, and forgive me, world, I'm going to say it, and I'm just going to say it. I said what I said, and that's what I said. There are 150 morons you're inviting to this party. And they're all going to get drunk, and they're all going to act dumb, and they're doing it because they're not at their own house. Most people do not act like morons at their own house. They go somewhere else to do it. And that's why you, engaged couple, didn't invite 150 morons to your house to get drunk and puke everywhere. So this is what we end up at the venue, and why the venue has additional liability, and so much liability, and needs to protect themselves and has contracts and rules. So when our couples push back on those rules, and sometimes our venue owners give into those rules, they find themselves in a situation where they're not breathing until Sunday. They're just like, oh my gosh, let this work out. And there isn't, you know, there are ways to protect yourself and have layers of protection. So you can sleep at night and enjoy what you do and protect your investment and your couples and 150 morons that come and do dumb things.
I'll add something there too that's a little less insurance related, but ensuring that within your contract, we all have those outlines, but a lot of contracts, like those that I'm familiar with directly, have a provision in that our failure to enforce that does not actually absolve the obligation in itself. So it says no sparklers. I should just use that example at that point in time. If for some reason that venue manager gets put in that bad situation because they snuck them in with the 90-year-old grandma that we're supposed to like feel sorry for, or like it's, you know, whoever that may be, if they don't enforce that, it's still in the contract that they violated the contract. So there's some things too, also when looking at your contract. Again, this is not insurance related, but it is that clause of, you know, if for some reason it's overlooked or it wasn't enforced directly, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden we are, you know, agreeable to that particular situation.
Well, everybody's getting a ton of value from this video today, right there, folks. If you watched until the end, we're almost at the end, you got a nice little clause for your contract. So you are welcome. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for the, and I'm actually going to write that up and put that everywhere in when I post this blog. So I am going to put all of Ventura links and contact information at the end of this in the, your links, your contact information. If a wedding vendor, I'm sorry, if a wedding venue would like to contact you, where should they start and how should they do that?
Contact directly. You can contact Kaylee and I directly via phone or email. The best place actually probably to go is actually ease of use here right now. Go to ventura.co. Our contact information is out there. All of our email links and so forth are available from there. And that's a great place to start. You can also contact us at any point directly. I'll give out my cell phone number here at this point. You want to reach me directly, 937-609-7767. Call me on my cell. We are dedicated to this, want to help your group as much as possible. We're here to help them in every way. So that's getting right to the source. You can start at the website, but you want to call me directly, except for about 2 hours every night through high school soccer season until my son's done. I'm tied up. But the other 22 hours of the day, you can get me.
No, not to mention that little thing you do every weekend, weddings, you know, that little easy thing.
That's just on the side.
Well,
you know,
we all know that anybody involved in that phone is blowing up nonstop from about midday on Friday through whatever time on Saturday. So your phone is to your ear one way or another, trying to corral a lot of cats between vendors and everything going on. You know how that goes.
So we are going to repeat this every single month, and we might even increase the frequency. We'll see how it goes. But what we are going to do is an Ask the Expert session, and I will post that in the group so that you all of you venue owners out there can ask questions and get more familiar with insurance process, how you're protected. All the questions that you have can now, we can start to process those in the group. And then Lee and Kaylee will start to answer those questions for us and give us some expert feedback on all of the questions that you have regarding wedding insurance, wedding, safety measures and protocols that you can put into place at your wedding venue to go hand in hand with your insurance policy, how you can get your couples to get covered, all those questions that you have regarding wedding industry and venue owner insurance. Lee's going to help us navigate that very unsexy maze of adulting, of being a protected adult. Not always the funnest part of the day, but I'll tell you, when you sleep a lot better at night, you're going to be thankful. You're going to be thankful you had these podcasts and these Ask the Experts. So Lee and Kaylee, I'm so incredibly excited to have you here. When we have insurance questions, we're going to start to refer you to them. You saw me tag you in the group today. There was a question in there. So while you may not you may have to ask more questions. What state are you in? And things like that. We're going to start to really help our wedding venue owners just to be powerfully educated in all things wedding venue, wedding insurance.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. We're excited.
I'm excited too. Thank you all so much for your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.